If you've played Terraria, chances are you've run into some kind of food along the way. Whether it's a humble marshmallow on a stick bought from a merchant and toasted over your base's campfire, or a luxurious golden delight made from golden critters. Regardless of what it is, you've probably eaten some kind of food while playing. And it may not seem like it, but a good meal can completely change the course of your gameplay. But before we continue, it's important to understand what the game classifies as food. For an item to be considered food, it must meet certain criteria. It should cancel the hunger debuff, be placeable on plates, and grant one of the 3 food buffs upon consumption. If an item meets all 3 requirements, then it can be classified as food. And currently, there are 31 recipes that can be crafted using various ingredients. However, 27 of these recipes require a cooking pot or its Halloween version, the cauldron. So before watching the rest of the video, I recommend having a cooking pot at your disposal. Eating in Terraria can grant you 3 types of buffs. The first and most basic one is the well-fed, which provides minor boosts to all stats and increases life regeneration. Usually simple foods like fruits, teas, or drinks will give you this effect when consumed. The boosts in the stats aren't huge, but since these foods are easy to get early in the game, they can be super helpful. One recipe I frequently use for the well-fed buff is the fruit salad. Because it's easy to make and lasts a good 25 minutes, you just need 3 fruits of any kind and a bowl for its recipe. You can get the fruits by shaking trees with your axe, and the bowl is made with just 2 blocks of clay in a furnace. The recipe is simple and quick, but if it doesn't suit your taste, there are plenty of equally easy alternatives to try. The next one is the Plenty Satisfied buff. It's the middle ground among food buffs and offers medium improvements to all stats. The stat boost may not be significant compared to the well-fed buff, but it can still make a difference in your gameplay. But getting these foods can get a bit trickier as they start using more ingredients like fish, small critters, or some less common fruits. But a lot of these foods can be dropped by enemies, so as you explore Terraria's world, you'll get rewarded with some snacks along the way. At the start of the game, there are 2 simple foods that give the Plenty Satisfied buff for 8 minutes. The first is the bowl of soup, which just needs 1 golden fish and 1 mushroom. And the second one, and usually my favorite to make, is the pumpkin pie, which only requires 10 pumpkins and doesn't need a cooking pot. Personally, I find the Plenty Satisfied buff quite enjoyable. While the ingredients for the recipes may not be readily available early in the game, they are pretty simple to acquire. And as you go around exploring and grabbing stuff, a wide variety of recipes become available for you to try. The third and most powerful food buff is the Exquisitely Stuffed, which grants major improvements to all stats. The increase in stats it provides is significant and can truly make a difference when facing a boss. However, acquiring the foods that grant these stats can be quite challenging, as there are only 2 dishes that grant this powerful buff. One of them is the grape juice, which is straightforward to make with just 2 grapes and a bottle. But unlike other fruits, grapes don't drop from trees. Instead, they have a small chance to drop from giant flying foxes and derplings. So, unless you enjoy farming in the hard mode jungle, it's not worth the stress. The other meal is the Golden Delight, which is the best food in the game with the longest duration of 48 minutes. However, obtaining this food relies on luck, as its recipe requires only 1 ingredient, a golden critter. And given the rarity of golden critters, this recipe may not be the most viable option in your gameplay. You can also get this buff through foods dropped by certain enemies, but it's a very small chance. And unless you've already built a mob farm, relying on luck to get these items may not be the most efficient strategy. However, there is still a third alternative method to acquire the Exquisitely Stuffed buff. During Christmas, while opening presents, there's a small chance of getting some seasonal foods. You can get the Christmas pudding, the gingerbread cookies, or the sugar cookies. These 3 treats grant the Exquisitely Stuffed, but the effect only lasts for 4 minutes. It's a short duration, but it can be useful in quick battles, especially those with a high mortality rate. But just looking at the stats, the food items might not seem like a big deal, but in practice, the boosts they give you are incredibly useful. They're great for damage, especially if you're playing melee, since they increase your attack speed, critical hit chance, and melee damage. The movement speed is also significantly increased, which is always a welcome benefit in Terraria's fast-paced environment. And starting in Expert mode, your health regeneration almost doubles. While this may not be as noticeable during intense battles due to constant damage, it significantly enhances your recovery during quieter moments. I think these three things are what make food so crucial for any player, especially if you're playing in Master mode or some special seeds. Having an extra boost to your stats, besides just potions, is incredibly helpful. But in the end, everything that goes in has to come out, and the same goes for food in Terraria. If you sit on a toilet while having an active food buff, that buff will be consumed and transformed into poo. The amount of poo produced is directly related to the quality of the food buff and its remaining duration. Basically, the better the food you eat, the more poo you'll make. The best food for producing poo is the Golden Delight, which can yield up to 141 poo blocks. And the worst food is the marshmallow, which will produce only 1. But to be honest, poo doesn't have much utility in the game. The best thing you can make with it is fertilizer. Beyond that, its uses are pretty much decorative. You can create a pile of poo, or even build a poo house on top of a poo mountain, but that's about it. I love how Terraria brings food into the game in such a natural way. It's not crucial to your gameplay, but it's always there, whether you're picking up resources while exploring or learning random recipes from the guide. Sooner or later, food will show up, and it's up to you to make the most of it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.